surfnbs.com. Scott Bass, our favorite fin of choice right here.
Yeah, I got an Instagram the other day, I think it was yesterday, from one of our listeners that was like, "Hey, thanks to Scott and David for mentioning the C drives." And he had purchased the C drives and put them in his new board and was super excited as you and I are with our C drives, and he was with his. So, Naked Vikings, NVS fins, check them out. I mean, you and I have a cadre, a drawer full of incredible fins, and we're so lucky, to have those fins at our disposal because they make each board surf a little differently, and wonderful to have them on board as our sponsor.
I totally agree. Customer service is the key here. Like fins can feel confusing. And so Jamin and Leif own the brand. They're accessible and they're experts. And so reach out to them if you have questions about what fin should. I actually always do. I just tell them what I'm buying or what board I'm getting, and then they tell me what fins to put in them. And then if you're a surfboard shaper and you do have something specific that you want to have built, they can do that for you as well in really small quantities. You don't have to hit big minimums or anything like that. So they're just a real tremendous asset basically for all of us.
And it got me thinking too about this drawer full of fins, right? This idea that I have a drawer full of fins, that you have a drawer, a bucket, or whatever it is. In an ideal world, we would have a setup like a walk-in closet where you have your ties over here and your
Ooh.
socks here, and your handkerchiefs here and your cashmere sweaters here, and you get to kind of grab them and arrange them and put them together. In an ideal world, we would have our boards lined up and we would have above them all of our fins, and we would just select the fins, and there would be a really wonderful, I guess, a surfboard closet or a walk-in closet for your fins and your boards, and
I
that's
want
what
a,
that's what we're shooting for.
I want a fin cellar. It's like a
Thank you.
wine cellar. I walk out into the garage, I pull a secret lever, and a door opens up in the floor. And I walk down, and it's nothing but fins, beautifully backlit. That's what
And
we're
like
going for.
somehow AI is involved. You say, Siri or whatever the hell its name is. You say the waves are 3 to 4. There's a slight onshore crumble. I'm going to be surfing a beach break. This is the board I've selected. Which fins do you recommend? And Jamin's voice comes over and says, these are the fins for you today.
The series name is Finley, is what it is. Finley is
Right.
the AI. So
Perfect.
yeah, get your NVS fins. You can get them at surfnbs.com or of course realwatersports.com, which is our retail partner. And they've got everything you need. I mean, it's in the name, Real Water Sports, anything that you need for the water. So whether it's kiting, foiling, or surfing, hard goods, soft goods, um, they've got it all. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say we're less than a week away from Christmas, and I have some shopping to do. Let's be clear. Let's be clear.
Of
It just
course you
hit
do.
me. It just hit me like 2 days ago. I'm like, oh my God. And so Real Water Sports is sort of a no-brainer for the surfer on your list.
I'll tell you what, we could take a break from recording and you can get that shopping done right now on Real Water Sports.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think my wife needs a leash?
I think fins, get her some NVS
I
fins.
will. I'll get her some fins. She'll appreciate that a lot.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing
Hey,
rail.
yeah, guy. Yeah, guy, David. It is December 19th. We're about 6 days away from Christmas. But more importantly, it feels like Christmas kind of came yesterday because we had a lot going on. Let me just say that this is the Spit podcast. Did I even say that?
You
Yeah.
just did.
Okay. And David Lee Scales, Scott Bass with you, talking all things surf in the surf world. And boy, what a day we had yesterday, David, with Pipeline Masters. And I'm sure you were engaged in it all. And we've got some other stuff in the news, like Big Surf, a possible run of the Eddie Aikau event, and some other things. I have a who said that? I'm going to try to stump you.
You will.
So, good morning, David. Good
Good,
morning.
great morning. Tell me what is going on with this swell.
Well, look, I mean, the Northeast Pacific is firing up with low pressure systems, which are spinning up rabid, I should say, fetch, and therefore large swell. And we just saw the pipe event had massive surf in Hawaii yesterday. And frankly, it looks like the Eddie Aikau event is on yellow alert as of this morning. And it looks like they may try to run the Eddy event um, either Saturday or Sunday or maybe Monday. I frankly don't think they're going to run the Eddy, and I'll tell you why. It's because, from my vantage, looking at the models, which is what they are, they're just models, they could be wrong. It looks as if the majority of the swell arrives overnight on Sunday and sort of we miss it all because of the darkness. And then Monday, by Monday mid, but like let's say Monday, the day of the moment of the final, let's call it like 2 in the afternoon in Hawaii, the swell's really dissipated. A majority of the energy is arriving Sunday night through Sunday night, and so all of Sunday night sees the mass of the swell. I think Monday morning it'll be massive and huge. And again, I want to state that I'm no expert here. I hope that they run the Eddy. I would be excited to see the Eddy run, and maybe some others that are a little bit more in tune with what's happening in the Hawaiian Islands see it differently. And I hope they do. I hope they run it, but it looks like they might just kind of miss it.
But to be clear, the swell itself looks like an eddy size swell.
Absolutely. It's huge. It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
But it looks like it peaks like at 6 p.m. Sunday and runs through Sunday evening, as I mentioned. So, again, I hope I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But there's going to be plenty of large surf regardless. So, we're going to see a lot of content, I think, from spots like Jaws, spots like Waimea Bay, some of the outer reefs, the well known outer reefs in Hawaii, like, Himalayas, so forth and so on. So, and the winds look light, like it looks like good conditions. So, if they have the Eddy or not, I know we're going to see a lot of great content from big wave surfers.
What does this swell mean for us in California?
Well, look, it's going to be it's pretty massive. Like, I think what's going to happen is Sunday we're going to see massive surf. We might see some Maverick surf Saturday. And then down here in Southern California, Sunday, the swell really arrives. And then I think the meat of the energy when we get the second low pressure system that's going to build on an already agitated sea state. I think Tuesday here in Southern California, Monday up in the Mavericks area, we're going to see some massive surf, probably the biggest surf of the swell train Monday into Tuesday here in Southern California. And then all of Christmas week is going to be big and powerful and experts only. And be careful. It's going to be weird because everyone's going to be off. There's going to be a lot of crowd and there's going to be a lot of people with new Christmas surf gear and they're going to be thrown into the fray of really powerful surf. So people need to be wary and be careful.
Where are you going to surf?
I don't know. I'm kind of it's going to be, it's basically opening day for all of the big wave spots. And so, there's a few spots here, that'll handle it. And, I'm just going to have to kind of wait and see regarding, tides and how actually big it is,
Yeah.
and, but I have those butterflies that you get when you're a surfer and you're excited and you're also anxious and you're also like, wow, like, is it going to be so big that we can't even get out? Who knows? That could happen. I'm going to raise my hand and say, I'm concerned.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's funny where I'm at. I mean, I could get in the car and do a mission to somewhere that can hold the swell, but where I'm at generally doesn't hold the swell. And so I try to find um, less exposed spots, basically, to do the exact style of surfing I'd be doing on a small swell, basically. Um, so,
Yeah, there's some spots that, it's funny. Somebody asked me about that yesterday. They're like, and to be frank, I think there's some spots in the San Clemente area that will tone down the swell energy a bit. And so, yeah, like,
well,
yeah.
for everybody else, though, around the world, it's like getting a bigger board or, getting the bigger board ready, doing a different style of surfing, looking to just go find the spots that light up with the swell that generally don't. And for me, it's the exact opposite. I'm trying to find the spots that are smaller so that I could do the exact same style of surfing I'd be doing on any other day.
Yeah, and I, tip of the cap to you because I think that there's so much strategy involved in trying to avoid the situation, like the crowds, avoid, like, and it's just it's kind of a bummer that I mean, it's not a bummer. I guess that's like surfers are the worst a little bit, but it's Christmas week. And so there's just everyone's off and everyone's frothing. And certainly I think the hype train has been, I don't even know if it's hype. It's just information. We're just
Yeah.
giving information. We're in an information age. It's not like anyone's hyping anything. The bottom line is that it's 20 feet in Hawaii right now, which means that swell's on its way. And like so that's not hype. That's just like it's coming, like here it comes. So it'll be
Well,
exciting.
the reality is, I don't get a lot of opportunities with no work obligations. I have the week off basically. And so this is to align with a swell where you just know you're going to get your workout in, you're going to get your surfing in, is the ultimate gift. Ultimately, I can't remember the last time I was in this position other than maybe college years, 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
grateful.
Well, look, let's be clear. You've got a busy day, a week. On Tuesday night, you're going to be at the Belly Up with Rusty Preisendorfer and Taylor Knox. Is this? I don't think this is your first Surf Splendor live event, but it feels like a big event for you. So tell me a little bit about it. I'm excited for you. You're going to be in front of a live audience.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's actually January 21st.
Oh, I thought it was December 20. I'm sorry.
No,
I
it's
apologize.
okay, which I'm grateful for. Get a little bit more planning in.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, listeners have been asking for this for a long time, basically. The reality is other podcasts have started doing live shows in the recent years,
Mhm.
and so people just started asking for it. And the only time, I mean, I get a few opportunities throughout the year to interact with listeners, the main one being the boardroom show. And this Florida Surf Film Festival, I go out to a couple of times a year and I interact with a lot of people there. And ultimately, they do ask for a live show specifically, but what I've identified that's kind of really what they're asking for is community events. Getting to interact with people live like that. And then you'll notice at the boardroom show, groups form. It's like you and I will be chatting to a listener, and then another person will come up and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm a listener too." And then it's like then they're talking, and I can go off and do my own thing, and I'll notice these groups kind of maintain. And so I've seen value in doing community events like this. And I was talking, actually, Rusty came up to me at the boardroom show, and he was like, "Hey man, I've only discovered podcasts in this past year, but I've been doing a deep dive through your archives, and I really enjoy it." And so he and I wanted to get together and do one, but he was also telling me about them kind of reinvesting in the brand and the brand legacy and bringing manufacturing back to California and keeping things kind of small or, focusing on the core and having local team riders and all this kind of stuff that was originally what built the brand. And so those two ideas kind of converged where I'm like, man, if I want to do a live event, San Diego's epicenter where there's a lot of listeners. And then Rusty is kind of synonymous with San Diego, and he's ready to kind of get new messaging out there or the original messaging back out there. So I found it to be a little too daunting to host an event by myself. Like, what am I going to talk about? So the concept developed of Talk Story, where we get an iconic shaper and an iconic surfer, and they are basically doing all the talking. And so Rusty and Taylor Knox is the combo for event number one. It's at the Belly Up. It's January 21st. Um, Tickets are 25 bucks, so totally affordable. We're going to do giveaways. We'll do a surfboard giveaway. We'll do merch giveaways. Jojo Roper is going to join us, and Jojo's um, incredible and got incredible stories. So we're gonna have like footage, where we can kind of discuss like Jojo won the paddle in wave of the year this past year at Mavericks with the Surfer Magazine Big Wave Awards. So we can discuss that wave. We can discuss that board. We can have that board on display, and Rusty can go through the design details and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's going to be exciting. And I'm curious, do you feel like, because I look at it like, okay, if I was in David's shoes, what would I be thinking about here? And I might be concerned that I have too many talking heads on the dais. Is that something that I'm sure that you've thought about how you're going to massage that and manage that?
Uh, I'm not too concerned. I that would be a concern in general, but you can navigate that through outlining and planning in advance.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just going to structure it really well.
So January 21st at the
Yep.
Belly Up Tavern. That's going to be good stuff, man. If you're listening out there, you're in San Diego County, you're going to want to check that out. Rusty, Taylor, JoJo, great stories there. And how long does the event run for?
2 hours. So doors open at 7, and then the event's from 8 to 10. And it'll be fun.
Yeah,
I've got it structured in such a way that it's going to be actually fun.
cool. Good.
And then also, I'm gonna do more of these. I'm gonna do like 6 dates, I think, on the West Coast and 6 dates on the East Coast, even.
Hmm.
And the guests are all being outlined right now. But you can imagine a Brit American pro surfer event in the Santa Barbara area, a Pearson Arrow Bob Pearson event in the Santa Cruz area with one of or a couple of any number of team riders of him over the years. So it's going to be cool.
Cool.
It's all based on the success of this event. So like if this event, sells out, then we'll absolutely book those other events. But the venues need certain guarantees and all that sort of stuff. So we wanted to test the water first, and that's what this event is.
Well, good for you. It's like I said, it's exciting. There's a lot that could bloom from this in a great way.
Totally. And Taylor just sent me a photo yesterday of him 8 years old holding a Canyon surfboard.
That's
So
awesome.
so when you think about, conversation points, like their legacy, Rusty and Taylor, is long and storied. And the amount of explosion that surfing saw during their era is the heyday, basically. And Rusty going from nothing to, $50 million in US sales and clothing in a short period of time is a crazy journey.
Yeah, those were crazy times for sure.
Truly.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, um, the Pipeline Masters. There's a lot to discuss. I've got some thoughts. I'll throw some things at you, and you tell me what you think. First of all, did you watch? Which stream did you watch? Did you?
Um,
Maybe
no,
you
I,
didn't watch.
I tuned in and out of the stream throughout the day, and it was a little bit inconsistent. I'd be watching for 20 minutes at a time and not even see a wave ridden.
Yeah,
So then I'd turn it off and then pull up Instagram 5 minutes later and somebody just got a 30-point ride. And it's like, oh damn, I missed it. But
yeah,
but the answer is I kind of watched it.
yeah. Well, I watched Nathan Fletcher's stream.
Florence.
A big chunk. Nathan Florence, thank you. A big chunk of it, and I was kind of engaged, and I was like you. I had it kind of over here off to the side, so because it was so massive, there were huge, chunks of time where people just you had to be careful about which wave you chose. It wasn't like a massive, wave tally event. There was just very much picking and choosing which waves to go on. But Nathan Florence, to his credit, was in front of the camera most of the day, and was engaging with the community via the chat but some of the standouts, as far as the actual surfing, I think the obvious ones, because we all saw the big rides. It wasn't like there was more than a handful of really incredible rides. Mason Ho comes to mind. Alan Cleland Jr. comes to mind. Of course, Koa Smith, and you could argue Koa Smith won the event. I mean, with that one ride, but he didn't. Nathan Florence won the event. Aaron Brooks was, I think, of everything I saw, I think the big question mark was Aaron Brooks in my mind. Like, can she paddle out in the most horrendous, massive pipeline and do what she did in Fiji? And Aaron Brooks is she's kind of reset the table, I think, as far as women's surfing. And it's so funny how quickly I wouldn't say it's changed, but it's adjusted. Like the table's adjusted. Like when you think of 8 to 10 to 12 foot pipeline, you're like, okay, Moana Jones Wong, who absolutely killed it, by the way. She surfed brilliantly. And you knew Katie was in there. And there were some other question marks, and Erin Brooks was one of those question marks based on what she did in Fiji, where she basically like won every single heat and then won the event. And she paddled out at this event and threw caution to the wind and pulled into massive barrels and won the event. And so, um, while she was sort of a question mark, she is no longer a question mark. She has established herself as a pipeline master in the gnarliest of gnarly conditions. And there's no more question in anyone's
She
mind about Erin Brooks. She's legitimate in every kind of condition, from wave pool to 15-foot pipe. And I'm not sure there's any other woman surfer that can really raise their hand and say, "Yeah, I can do any air I want in a wave pool in Texas, and I can paddle out and pack massive barrels and come out at huge pipelines." So I think that's the biggest story to me is Aaron Brooks.
she did what we've never seen Felipe do, to be perfectly honest.
I don't even think it's
Um,
fair to put her in the same conversation.
agreed.
She's way above that.
Agreed. So what I found the point of difference for her when I was watching that is there's four finalists, right? Betty Lou, Moana, Caitlin Simmers, and Aaron. And Aaron was the obviously the youngest of that group, and there were maybe a question mark or two. But where she stood apart is going both ways. Like Moana, I don't see have any kind of confidence or interest in backdoor. Betty Lou, I guess maybe I've seen her go both, but not necessarily like dial it in, not like dominate on pipe or backdoor. She's getting comfortable out there still. Caitlin Simmers, I guess I've seen her go both, but Aaron Brooks got a sick backdoor ride. I don't know if you remember that event at Snapper 2 years ago that she won, but her backside barrel riding there was unbelievably like deft. And then when you look at the closeout that she packed at Pipe and then the wave that she got in the final and made, her positioning and everything is really, really comfortable. Like she's like slinks in. It's just, she looks like she's been doing it for a very long time. There's no question of her like sorting it out anymore. It looks like she's been tube riding out there for a very long time. So left, right, all of that, she is a threat.
Yeah, she's an incredible story. I mean, if you were to kind of as we reach the end of the year and you think about, okay, what's actually the number one story in surfing this year for 2024? I think it's Aaron Brooks. When you think about what she did at Cloudbreak and what she just did at Pipeline, um, there's a lot of great little side stories that we could also put in here, but I think she's a massive, massive story. Like I think we shouldn't underappreciate it or
Good.
underweight it.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting too how much hype and focus was on Caitlin Simmers when she won the pipe event for the WSL earlier in the year. And now Aaron has kind of done the same thing. Like Caitlin was, I actually didn't get to see any of Caitlin's waves in this event now that I think about it, but she's totally stole the thunder, that Katie was holding, which could mean we've got a little rivalry coming up between those two for the next few years.
Yeah, and I do want to say this that all of the women finalists deserve kudos. Like they all rose to the occasion. They all surfed incredibly. They I don't know if they surfed incredibly, but they all did it. They all paddled
Oh
out and
yeah.
charged. Like Caitlin took some massive wipeouts. Betty Lou got some great waves. Obviously, Moana, absolutely, she's a force out there, and so I think tip of the cap, as I said, to all four of the women, and just really, really challenging surf, especially the final.
Yep, totally agree. Great call. Great to see Aaron Brooks delivering on the potential that we've been anticipating for a long time. That's the other thing. So many young up and coming surfers we get hyped about. Very few of them actually deliver on their potential. And so Aaron seems to be living in that moment.
I think of Aaron. The first thing I think is I think, okay, when are you going to interview Aaron Brooks? And then I think to myself, I'm not sure she's the best interview. I mean, you want to get her, right? You want to get the interview. And I've heard her speak. She's for her age, she's actually quite communicative, and she's smart, she's intelligent. But as you know, like the best interviews are like the 50-year-old dude who's got a life's worth of experience that they can expound on. And what are your thoughts on Aaron as an interview? As like how you know what I mean? Like, ex- talk to me.
I I wouldn't reach out to her for an interview, to be honest. If it landed in my lap, I'd absolutely do it. But yeah, I would maybe not go a full 90 minutes like I do with a 50-year-old. It might be a shorter interview. I've
I mean,
heard
the
her.
interview is almost with her father. Like that.
It's a great call. Yeah,
Yeah, you know
totally.
what I mean. Like he's kind of the guy that's moved all the pieces to the place where we're at now.
That'd be a much more interesting conversation for me personally to have. And I do hear her reference her father when she's interviewed in post-heat interviews. And it's kind of, this is not to shade her at all, but she sounds like a very young person in the interviews. Like I hear her referencing, well, my dad just told me I should do this or that,
Yeah.
and that's her answer to questions. So it's cute actually, and it's
And it's
incredible.
okay, by the way. There's
Oh
nothing
yeah.
wrong with that. That's why I say it's not, you know.
Well, it's incredible that she's as comfortable in the ocean because it belies her youth. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she just she looks like an old expert out in the water, and then she gets on the beach and starts talking. You're like, oh my gosh, that's a child still. So
She's got a great surfing style,
really
like
great style.
she just got a great style. And man, I mean, what is this? What is the, well, you mentioned, okay, maybe we have a rivalry, Katie and Aaron. I don't know. Um, but where's Aaron? Like, help me out. I'm going to raise the ignorance flag here. Is Aaron Brooks on the tour, the
No,
CT?
I don't think so. I'll double check real
That
quick.
is, that seems wrong. By the way, the other thing that stood out to me as you double check to see if Aaron Brooks is on the CT, the other thing that stood out to me was, first of all, last week you mentioned, look, I want to see Gabe, John Florence, Elo, Kelly Slater. This is the Pipeline Masters. This needs to, this is wrong, and frankly, I agree with you that the world's best surfers should be in an event, and they are. The Pipeline Pro comes up here in January. But what really stood out to me was, first of all, I absolutely was stoked on the final as far as like who was in it. Koa Smith, Alan Cleland, great up and I wouldn't even say he's an up and comer. He's established. Um, Nathan and Ivan Florence. Like that's an incredible final. And frankly, if there was trialists allowed into the WCT event, that could be at the final, and you wouldn't blink an eye. You'd be like, all four finalists made it through. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That would be cool. And by the way, I think that's happened before. I want to say there's been Pipe Masters, the ASP, where three of them were like Jamie was a finalist. Yeah. Anyway, I don't quote me on that, but I feel like more than one trialist has made it through to the finals. But the one thing that stood out to me is that the drama of 15-foot pipeline. Why in God's name aren't we crowning a world champion at Pipeline in December or January or January, excuse me, each and every year? Like the drama that the thing that drew me to a long and boring and tedious broadcast yesterday was that it was 15-foot pipe with second reefers, third reefers, and it it was enough to have me watching a lot of dead air, but I was engaged
yeah,
regardless because here comes another set. Oh my God. And I'm just, I'm at wit's end at this point after yesterday's surf. Why in God's name aren't we crowning a world champion at Pipeline in December? There, everything else needs to be off the table. Like,
I
let's
know.
start there. If we can't do that, then we are failing.
It's crazy. I mean, look, we've discussed it ad nauseum.
Yeah,
So
we
I'm
have.
apprehensive to do another 10-minute diatribe
No, don't.
myself.
That's okay.
But
Don't. I just had to get it out
I
there.
fully agree. I just want to state I fully agree. And it almost can't be overstated. But That makes me think, or I had a question for you based on coming off of last week's criticism of no live broadcast. Vans provided no live broadcast for this event. Let's restate that. Yet we did watch Nathan Florence's stream yesterday. Um, did you miss the live broadcast? I mean,
I did.
did
I
you
missed the replays.
that yeah, totally.
I
Okay.
missed the replays. I was, I could have, if they had replays, I would have been fine with what I saw.
Yeah.
You know, like
Because
the
that's
inside behind the scenes that we got from Florence's mother, John's and Nathan's and Ivan's mother, the behind the scenes that we got from Koa, the behind the scenes that we got from the other people. Frankly, I tuned into the broadcast yesterday morning early, right when they went live, and Nathan and his broadcast guy were having a bit of a tiff about why didn't you pick me up? You know, like, and they, I don't even think they realized that they were live. Nathan was like, didn't get my first wave? And there was like a little bit of
that's funny.
fun, little drama like
Yeah.
there, you know, that you wouldn't have gotten from like a professional. Here we are, Joe and Chris, and you know.
Right.
So I liked that kind of down home North Shore vibe. Like we're sitting here, we're eating bananas. Hey, thanks, and the engagement with the chat community, which was seemed. I didn't turn on my chat, but it seemed like it was very
Yeah.
you know, kind and you know, well thought out. And so I loved it, to answer your question, except for the replays would have been great. Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like by the end of the day, I was thinking about it like, okay, well, I had live access if I wanted it. And if I pull up my phone or Instagram or whatever, I see the important rides being replayed. And so there was very little missed from actually having a live stream all day, every day. I still got most of what I wanted out of the event. And I would also make an argument that this kind of constriction back to the core is a lot better in a lot of ways. Kind of like the point that you just made, where the overproduced with too many graphics and commercials and all that sort of stuff misses some of the essence of the event. And it certainly even misses waves because you cut away to commercial or you're at a post heat interview or something like that. So, for whatever is gained through that professional version of it, I think there is something lost. And we realized, I don't know what the kind of essential components are yesterday. So, not a lot was missed for me.
Speaking of broadcasts, you more than me, caught a little bit of flack from somebody on Instagram. Was that Joe Alani that did
Yeah.
that? Okay. That I really enjoyed his take, by the way, and tip of the cap to Joe. He basically was saying, hey, there's a lot of people out there saying these things only cost $20,000. Why isn't Vans doing one? And he sort of reset the table and said, that's simply not true. Add up the labor, add up the T&E, add up the travel, you know, add it all up. You're looking at 400 grand. And I think he's right. If you do add it all up over the course of a waiting period and all the broadcasters and all the judges and blah, 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 it's expensive. And there's a lot of equipment. But I watched yesterday's
Exactly.
broadcast and I said, that couldn't have been 400 grand. Now, granted, that was just one day. That wasn't over the waiting period. So I think if you do try to do like a broadcast, like industry worthy, you know, NBC broadcast of surfing, you're looking at a huge number. But I'm simply thinking maybe we don't need that. Maybe we can
Yeah.
just do a Nathan. By the way, I was calling it the Florence Pipe Masters yesterday on my Instagram because it felt like I was watching the Florence Pipe Masters. I wasn't watching the Vans Pipe Masters. I was watching the Florence Pipe Masters. But, you know, so
Yes.
I want to say that Joe's right. And maybe we misstepped. And I think you stated it really well on the Instagram that regardless if it's 400 grand or 20 grand, Vans failed. Vans failed us, whatever the number was. Let's call it 400 grand. They don't got 400 grand, then they should probably not be involved.
Well, my point on the Instagram was I think Vans revealed that they've lost the plot. Like Vans came from surfing. And so if anybody who is making decisions was in the boardroom still, I mean anybody in the boardroom was knew their legacy and respected their legacy, then they would still be chipping money at this thing because they have the money. You know, I know they're in financial straits, but they still have enough money to do a live broadcast. It's simply that they don't care about you that much. You, the
Yeah.
surfer, guess what? They don't care about you anymore. You know, they cared about a lot of other things. Surfing isn't one of them. And so it's just an indicator of how far they've gotten away from the kind of legacy or the initial ideas behind the brand. But as it relates to Joe Alani, so Joe Alani, the reason why he made that Instagram post is he does live events streaming.
Yes,
They do
yes,
this show called Couch Surfing, and
yeah.
they do a very professional job at it. And so they know what the hard costs are. And to be clear, I don't. I saw Peter King do something on Instagram where he said it you can get this done for $20,000. And so I was regurgitating Peter King's number of $20,000. But I also feel when Joe made that post exactly like you said, which is I'm not asking for the full stream. I'm not asking for a WSL version of this, which you're right. You know exactly what that costs. Maybe it is $400,000. I don't know. Don't need it. You can get this done for 20. And I guarantee Nathan's over the course of the entire waiting period didn't cost even 20. You know what I mean? So you can iPhones are incredible. You can provide a certain stream on an iPhone and zero commentary and no labor, basically, if you're willing to do it. And that's all that I wanted. And I got, by the way, because Nathan did do it. So,
Well, let me say this, that I thoroughly enjoyed Joe's the way that he presented his disgust was I thought it was really good. I think uh Joe, if he's behind the camera, I'd like to see him in front of the camera a little more. I thought he did a good job of you know, conveying his displeasure. I thought it was clever, and I think
it
there
was,
was some sincerity in it, but there was also just a little
yeah,
bit of kind of fun.
jest.
Yeah,
And it engaged everybody.
it
So that
did.
was,
It did.
well, you leading with the Aaron Brooks story of the year is fair. Good for you. But I was gonna
Oh,
lead,
here we go. But
I was gonna lead with imagine this has never happened in the history of sports before
yes,
where
I know what you're going to say.
the person providing the stream and the commentary also wins the event. It is never in the history of any sport in the world is the guy standing in front of the camera pointing to the waves like giving commentary for everything, running the cam. I mean, he wasn't running the camera, but he's running the stream. You know,
Yeah.
like he's got a cameraman who's doing that. So it's a party of two. And then, hold on, I need to grab my board and go out and compete, and then wins the event. So when you call it the Florence Pipe Masters, you are not wrong. Florence stock is way up. You have John, who is our current world champ and a gold medalist. You have Nathan, who is the surfer of the year and winning the Pipe Masters and getting more barreled than any human that's ever existed on the planet at more locations on the planet. Like these guys are crushing it.
They are. It was I mean, we had the whole Florence clan. I felt like I was in the Florence backyard with them. They were all sincere and engaging and fun to be with. I felt like I was with them. They were engaging with the chat, with the community. People were giving money for something. People were watching the stream that lived on the North Shore and were dropping lunches by and bananas and just like it was just it felt like you were at across the street at the high school at a fair or something, and or at the school. And how many people do you think watched that stream?
It was at 20 at times when I watched it. I don't think I ever saw it dip below 10,000, but it was at 20,000 at times.
20,000 core viewers
Could,
watching.
like consistently throughout the course of an 8-hour day, 20,000. So that means people are coming and going. But if you're keeping 20,000 or, 10,000, I guess was the minimum, but that's incredible.
They killed it. I was thinking, man, Pat O'Connell is just laughing. Bob Hurley's laughing. They did such a good job. And there was just a lot of because it was just not quite as professional. There was sort of a charm to it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Well, a couple of other things. Koa Smith, you talked about his perfect wave 30-point ride. Koa Smith, I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. He's been doing these seminars. He's uh partnered or mentored by Troy Eckert, who's doing these kind of like awareness awakening. I forget what the guy's name is, the seminars that they go to.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who I'm talking about? The guy that they go see speak? He's like a
No.
self-help
Yeah.
realization kind of guy.
Right. Yeah.
I'll think of his
Microdosing.
name. Yeah, I'll think of his name. But they go and it's all about manifesting your will,
Yeah.
basically. Like, uh, I'm apprehensive to provide the exact my perception of what it is because I know my perception is not accurate and I've not
Yeah.
actually studied up on it, but it
Yeah.
seems a little bit it's spiritual.
Yeah. By the way,
Manifesting.
can we just stop right here and just say life is spiritual? You know what I mean? Like life is spiritual. This right now is spiritual. Like the idea that there's a spiritual thing and then there's this thing, or that's not true. It's all one thing. It's whether you acknowledge the spirituality or not, which is the difference.
So they're definitely tapping into the acknowledgement aspect of it and like, spending days in silence and mantras and sitting out in the sun and whatever. So I don't even know
I
what it
love
all means.
this. I
I'm
love this.
apprehensive to say. My question to you, Scott Bass,
Yeah.
is Troy has gotten a couple of the waves of his life in the recent years in the wintertime, and he has attributed this spiritual journey that he's on as the reason those waves have come to him. He is manifesting those waves. Did How much do you believe in the idea that you can manifest your will? And did Koa Smith manifest that wave?
I think he did, and I believe that it's true. I think that if you focus on whatever it is you focus on, that those things will a lot, the ability to sort of align and find themselves and find you in there. If you're focusing positively, positive stuff is going to occur. If your energy is negative and draining and life, you're going to be, and it's really about attitude as much as anything. Like, am I in a place of positivity? And that, in my opinion, by the way, these are all obviously my opinions. All of that starts with one thing, and that's gratitude. If you start your day in gratitude, saying thank you. I can't believe I've got this day ahead of me. Oh my goodness, I am blessed. It's going to help to perpetuate goodness. But if I wake up and I go, oh, fuck, I got to go take the dog out or whatever, then you're going to just naturally go down a negative, vibe. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I believe that I don't necessarily, I personally, um, when I personally followed my will, a lot of bad stuff happened. That's just me personally. Um, I have self will run riot, you know, and it led me to a really, really dark place. But I do believe in the power of gratitude.
All right, well said. And I'm convinced after hearing you say it.
I'm not trying to convince anyone.
No, but I am because on the most basic level, when I think about my surfing, when I push aside all the distraction of emails that I need to do, respond Christmas shopping that needs to get done, the surfing is at its best. When I'm just tapped in, here's my one goal is just focusing on riding this wave that's coming my way. That's when it's at its best. As soon as you start adding the clutter, it all becomes distracting and I fall. And so having a singular, that seems to be what they're doing, is like really focusing on what are the essentials in life. And maybe it isn't always surfing, but they are definitely focusing on the essentials in life. And let's say you add, um, you know, a McDonald's hamburger into the meal at some point in the day, that does create a certain disturbance in the way that you're operating and your body is operating. And then you add alcohol, and all of a sudden you're thinking about more freely, or whatever. And it's like that is all disturbance. And so, for whatever they're doing, they seem to have tapped into this kind of what are the essentials, and that's what I'm going to focus on. Shut out all the disturbance. And it doesn't mean that the perfect wave always comes your way, but it certainly gives you a better opportunity to capitalize on things and to know when those things are present, I guess.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's a certain sense of letting go too, and Kelly Slater sort of tapped into that a long time ago. That a meditation, that a mindfulness kind of presents for you this idea of if I let go of the trappings of all the stuff, all the goodness comes, But it's when I strangle and go, oh, I got to go do it this way, and that's when that not so good stuff occurs.
Joe Dispenza is the guy's name who they follow.
Oh, Joe Dispenza? Never
That's
heard
the
of it.
guy. That's the guy. Every like 6 months, I see that they're at a Joe Dispenza thing for the weekend.
I'm sure he's
Um,
great. I have nothing against Joe, and
I,
I want to be a fan. I'm
I
a fan already based on Koa Smith. I'm a big fan of Koa Smith, and not his surfing. Like I am no longer a fan of people's surfing. I'm a fan of the people,
yeah.
the person that they are, the people that they've become. I think it's wonderful, and they're inspiring. I want to strive towards that.
Well, Koa, that wave itself, the way that he scratched in and the drop was so gnarly. Like the drop was, it was really weightless and just had like a little edge of a rail in, and then he connects and just rides out of it perfectly with no hiccup. The way that the thing doubled up on the first reef, it was so thick. Like if you
Oh,
look at the actual still images of that, that was
yeah.
just a girthy, bottomed out, like, and
Oh,
he wrote it beautifully. And the reality is it was a closeout. So the thing like really hits the reef only for that midsection beautifully and doubled up. And then it had the closeout section, but he wrote it so perfectly that he escaped out the doggy door with zero threat at all. Like it was a perfectly written, non-perfect wave.
it was such a mean, draining, dry, heaving, wide. You know, you often hear, "Oh, you could drive a Mack truck through that." You could have driven a Mack truck through that barrel. Like it was so huge. And tip of the cap, Dakota. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that was the ride of the event. And it was just incredible. And you mentioned Peter King, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners watch Peter King's Instagram because he did a great interview about what you mentioned, the manifesting your destiny. And he's
I
talked
didn't
with Oh yeah, there's a whole thing.
I
It's
didn't get to
cool.
see that.
Oh yeah, it's cool. You got to check it out. Peter King's thing with Koa before he paddles out, when he paddles out, the wave, people in his camp going crazy, him coming in, him hugging his girlfriend or wife or whatever, and just it was pretty cool.
Peter's the best, man.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap it up, Pipe Masters, 40 men, 20 women, 35 by the which of the competitors, of the 60 competitors, were Hawaiians. Everybody surfed three heats. Top four made it into the final, and then of course you had a normal final format. So I like kind of the structure of the event. I think it was still a little bit of a disaster for the contest organizers. Like for all the criticisms that we had last week, I think those are all still valid because we were at the end of last week saying, well, maybe we're going to look stupid next week when when the event runs in great surf and then everything is forgotten.
Yeah.
Those things aren't forgotten for me. We did get good waves, and it was
Yeah.
salvaged by, I think, largely Nathan Florence and the Aaron Brooks story. But I think that the
Well, no,
contest itself,
the waves are what salvage it. Really, the
yeah.
waves are the stars. Let's continue that mantra because I think that's true.
But my point is that doesn't wash away all of the missteps of the contest organization and lack of streaming. And so, but it was a great final day. Anyways, Dahui Backdoor Shootout is on the books too. That starts on January 4th is the waiting window for that. So if you want more of this, look forward to that. Very similarly, kind of, they do run a live stream, and it is very similar to Nathan Florence's, I would say. It's pretty low production value, but gives you exactly the essentials and what you want. So
Yeah, it's good fun, and they provide a lot of Hawaiian history and insight into the Hawaiian culture there through that broadcast.
completely. Um, as we look towards the end of the year, we've got one or two shows left before 2025. Top surfers of the year. You've already mentioned Erin Brooks, not only the top story of the year, but she's got to be a top surfer, the top female surfer. Her and Caitlin
I
Simmers
was going to
duking it
say,
out.
I think it's almost at the top are two women. I think Katie and Aaron Brooks are the two stories. When you think about that swell that Katie got on that Surfline feature that they did, where they hunted down that
Oh yeah,
perfect,
yeah.
that was just mind blowing. So anyway, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that was kind of, you nailed it. That was my point.
I mean,
Uh,
what guy? I mean, obviously Nathan's the guy, right?
yeah,
Nathan Florence is the
once
guy.
again,
Yeah, and like by the way, John brought up an interesting point during the broadcast yesterday. Somebody asked him in the chat, they said, "Hey, John, would you rather win another world title or the Eddie?" And John John went, "Oh, that's a great question." And then John John said something that we all know, but I thought was fascinating. He goes, "You know what? Nobody's won the Eddie twice."
Right.
And you could see a little twinkle in his eye. John John was like, nobody's won the Eddie twice. And what a legacy from a Hawaiian standpoint to win the Eddie twice, to be the only one. Guess who stood up and kind of went, "What?" Kelly Slater, man. Kelly Slater competitively just went, "What?" I mean, that's the other takeaway, is that I felt like for the first time ever, I had no thought of Kelly Slater at all during yesterday's event, until John John said I could win the Eddie twice. And I went, wow, pulling the rug out. Now Kelly's going to win the Eddie, man. Kelly's going to win the Eddie.
I could see that being an absolutely motivating factor for him to get over to Hawaii this weekend.
Yeah. You mean
Well,
Kelly's not in Hawaii?
I have no idea actually.
Yeah.
I
I
haven't
think he
seen him
lives
there.
who knows?
I
Probably
haven't
playing
seen him
golf.
there.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on Waimea, I was finishing up my Surfer's Journal last night, and
Yes.
one of the final stories on the final pages is John Peck, um, a little short snippet story about Waimea, and he said it was 1974, and the Smirnoff Pro at Waimea had just ended with Reno Abalera as the champion. Looking to make the most of the near-empty lineup, four of us paddled out: Kimo Hollinger, Owl Chapman, Peter Cole, and myself. When the sun started going down over Kayana Point, I noticed a giant set on the horizon. I chased after the wave until I was lined up with the outermost indicator by Max Slim's house, a good 300 to 400 yards away from the regular Waimea lineup. From the channel, Chapman yelled at the top of his lungs, "Go for it, John." I was left with no other choice but to drop in. By the way, how's that feel? When you know you're in position, but you still have like a little bit of a gut check, and then somebody hoots at you like that, you're like, damn it, I got no other choice. I have to go. But we need that. You need people like that in your life. Anyways, feeling the air under my board as I free fell down the face, I thought, I have to hit the hardest bottom turn of my life or I'm fish food. As I buried the rail into the face, I hit a sudden notch on the face and I heard a loud cracking noise. The drop had stress shattered the glass on the entire bottom of my board. I was rocketed across the wall by this momentum. So when I read that, I thought he ate crap, but he didn't. He landed the drop. It just stress cracked the entire bottom of his board. Anyways, I was rocketed across the wall by this momentum, and I wedged myself into the barrel. The opening narrowed and moved progressively farther away. I closed my eyes and accepted the impending wipeout, but the light grew brighter. I opened my eyes to Cole paddling out paddling into the shoulder of the wave. I vibed him real heavy and he backed off just in time for me to backdoor the Waimea Peak. Before the wave closed out the bay, I kicked out and collapsed onto my board, shaking with adrenaline-induced convulsions. It was nearly dark. I watched as Cole and Chapman rode a wave together to the beach. I was the last to make it to the shore that day, following Hollinger in like a puppy dog. Cole was on the road in the middle of the crowd, jumping up and down with the stoke of a little kid, going on about how this was the best he's ever seen or the best it could ever get.
Wow, that's incredible. Right
Riding
on,
a
John.
riding a closeout and getting shacked on it in front of Peter Cole at Waimea.
It's a good story for sure.
Does it feel like a fishtail to you?
I don't know. I've never heard it before, but of all the Waimea lore, you've never heard the one. But I'm not doubting it. I'm just saying it's a good one.
It is a good story. I love Waimea falls out of our consciousness at times, but man,
It's gnarly, and we're gonna maybe get to see it here this weekend, perhaps, or maybe Monday.
the
More
other
will be
thing,
revealed. There's gonna be some gnarly Mavericks too.
yeah, lots to look forward to. I just want to say one other thing real quick about this Surfer's Journal new issue. They do like a Tom survey photo essay kind of thing in here.
Yeah.
And I was like, it struck me that there's photographers who are ubiquitous in the surf world. Photographer names who are ubiquitous. Survey is one of them, where
Hmm.
it's just like
Yeah.
everybody knows his name. You see his name all over. Like it's just, you might not even know what he looks like. You just know that name so well if you've been around surfing for any period of time. And
Yeah.
when you go through that photo essay, he was, I mean, his photos were era defining for so many eras. And it's not just Tom Curran backdoor, photo. It's shapers. It's like in the shaping bay with anybody from Tom Parrish to the guys at the Waterman's Guild here to he's in South Africa documenting J Bay to Cloudbreak to like all over the place for decades on end with the top of the top performers, shaping boards, surfing boards, every detail in between. It's an incredible catalog of work.
Yeah, no, Survey is the man. And the image that the one that always stands out to me, besides the obvious ones, is Conan Hayes at Cloudbreak on just an absolute huge wave, especially for when that image first came out. You were like, holy crap, how did he even catch that thing? It was one of those photos that really showed the girth and the vertical essence of a huge wave of Cloudbreak with Conan Hayes. And Tom's documented it all. He's been everywhere. He's one of those guys, like a lot of the great photographers, who's probably sitting on slides that no one's ever seen that are just awesome.
I know. And so that's what I was thinking too, because a lot of the images I had not seen in there. But the sheer number of era defining images is astounding. Like I've forgotten about the Conan Hayes one, but you say it and it's like, oh, that's exactly right. And then I
And a lot of
interviewed,
the female surfers from that era too. Um, he's got a lot of era defining images from that sort of mid '90s, early '90s, mid '90s. The Lane Beachley era, so to
yeah,
speak, for lack of a better phrase.
there was a Lynn Boyer shot in there from Sunset as well. Um, but um, I interviewed Chris Burkhardt, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago or something. And one thing he was telling me was when he was working at the magazines, the images that they always wanted to run and they valued they were what they were, whatever. Like you have an editor who's picking.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there is kind of there's a committee, I guess, going for a certain thing. He said once he got away from that world, he found that the images that actually resonated with his audience, which he had direct access to via Instagram, were totally different. It was things that he had been almost told, like, oh no, that's not worth seeing the light of day. And he almost like believed it. And then at some point just started publishing them on the side, expecting little reaction. And those are the ones that ended up being most appreciated by the audience.
Well, it's funny that you say a committee or that Chris mentioned a committee because what comes to my mind immediately is Flame, right? With Flame, there was no committee, man. It was a committee of one. You know what I mean? Like Flame was the gate that you had to get through if you wanted your deal done. And I think, and he was at Surfing. I worked at Surfer, and I think at Surfer, it probably was a little bit more of a committee. But when I was first there, it was Divine was the photo editor. And he Divine's a sweet guy, and he's probably a little bit more open to other people's opinions about stuff. But for sure, Flame was just like kind of a hard one to get through. I mean, you know, he ran the ship, and you knew it.
Well, in that case, it's still a committee. It is a committee of one, but it's like you're servicing their aesthetic, kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
So, which I guess a magazine does need. It needs direction. Any company
Oh, for
needs
sure,
direction.
for
So it's not
sure.
even a bad thing, but
Yeah.
it's interesting that in the social media world, you can then find a totally different audience.
Well, and I also think, and there's people like Evan Slater. There's other people that are more qualified to speak to this than me, but a great example would be Steve Hawk. By the way, you should try to interview Steve Hawk. Have you interviewed him?
No.
Anyway, my point is that I think Flame and Flame's sort of overriding vision of what his magazine would look like, also affected Surfer magazine. Like people knew, like they were like, oh, that's front lit Larry, like that
Totally.
was his whole thing, and that aesthetic carried through because people were like, there was such competition between, oh man, did you see that cover,
Yeah.
and so there was Flame in many ways sort of um, transcended just Surfing magazine and was affecting, even if it was subconsciously affecting photo choice at Surfer.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, I've got a Duke of the Week, and my Duke is Alexandra Florence.
Yeah, she did great. Tell me
Well,
why. I mean, she was a wonderful presence in the booth there yesterday. If you want to call it a booth, it was more like a tent.
not for that reason, just because
Matriarch.
she has raised
Right.
these. If it was the Florence Pipe Masters, which I agree with you, it was, she is responsible for creating that. And those guys seem so cool. I mean, they seem so grounded. They seem humble. They're at the top of the world, and seem as normal as you could possibly be. And I have no idea how you raise a kid that way.
I whenever I see the Florence kids and Alex, and I've told you this story before, but one time at Surfer Magazine, she trotted that clan through, and this was 20 years ago, or whatever. Like they were 4, 5, and 6 years old. They were like kids that needed to be in preschool. One of them, you know what I mean? And they were just wandering around Surfer Magazine, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, look at these!" And they were just tow-headed Groms with their mom, and we all were just like, and John. Everyone kind of knew who John was. Like, okay, but the other two were just like, yeah, those are his brothers, and it was just, um, I guess it was just cute, you know. It was just
Yeah.
charming and sweet, you know.
Did they have an aura?
They were just groms, like hardcore groms, like looking for stickers, like long shoulder long, like blonde hair, just like stickers, and just like, oh, you know, and like, you know, would see a skateboard and, you know, look at like some superhero figure that was on somebody's desk, and you know, like they didn't even there was no there was
Yeah, yeah,
no
yeah.
and in some ways I think that's the same way they are now. Like they seem very sincere.
Well, the other success of hers is I always wonder when you have like a superstar kid. When you have a superstar kid, the siblings get left out, you know? And that John was that superstar kid. And so she's done a phenomenal job of the other boys seem just as well-rounded and kind and humble and thoughtful as anybody.
Yeah, it's a real family too. I mean, and when I say that, I mean, of course it's a real family, but what I mean is they're so supportive of each other. Like there's not any, you know, I'm sure on some deeper level there's a little bit of a rivalry, sibling rivalry. I think every family has that, but like yesterday you saw them cheering up Nathan. You know, it was
Yeah.
John and Ivan cheering him up, you know, and they all shared the tent together, and there was and it's not BS. It's just that there's a real familial bond that's very, very deep, I sense.
Color me impressed.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have
Dude,
time for who said that?
no.
Oh, got a good one.
I mean, if we can rush through it, I just got to get Austin off to preschool and stuff like that. But if you could rush it, we can do it.
Who said that? There's still some pretty heated discussion about who really got pro surfing off the ground. Fred Hemmings, or was it the Australians, Peter Tanner and Ian Cairns? Well, let me tell you, no question, it was Fred. Fred was the main player. Without his commitment, without his brute force, which is Fred's style, all the way, you know, dead ahead Fred, it wouldn't have happened when it did. He wanted a pro circuit, and he wanted it right now. Fred wasn't a man of great plans, but he was a man of action. Who said that, David? Was it A, Randy Rarick, B, Jack Shipley, C, Peter Druin, or D, Phil Jarrett?
Wow. D.
Phil Jarrett, wrong. That's from Jack Shipley, a renowned judge and Lightning Bolt Surfboards head honcho, Jack Shipley, who said that during a interview with
Um,
Matt Warshaw a long time
Very good. Yeah, and an important detail of history as well.
ago.
Um, well, very good. Thank you for that. Sorry for making you rush through it. I just want to state my must-see moment presented by Treeswax, treeswax.com, is an unconventional one, but it is the cover of Transworld, or I'm sorry, Thrasher magazine. Have you seen this latest cover of Thrasher?
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I haven't.
The reason why I'm bringing it up on our surf podcast is it's Grayson Fletcher.
Uh huh.
It's Grayson Fletcher at the North Shore skate park doing this insane. It's like the crazy. I don't even skate. I
Yeah,
grew up skating a little bit.
yeah,
I don't skate.
yeah,
This is one of the greatest skate photos I've ever seen in my life.
yeah.
Um, I don't know if it'll work if I pull it
Well,
up for you on my
let's
phone.
let's give it a try.
Yeah,
Shoot
let
it
me
over
try.
onto your push it over onto You can probably put it up onto your camera too.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's not really working. Okay, that's a little better. It's kind of hard to see.
Whatever. It is my musty moment. Go look at Thrasher magazine's cover shot of Grace and Fletcher doing. I don't even know what the trick is.
Right.
It's insane.
Cool.
Greatest thing I've seen this week.
Sweet. That's a
Yeah.
musty moment presented by Trees Wax.
Yep. There you go.
Well, David, it's been a heck of a show. Until next week, adios and aloha.
All right.